Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I just downloaded this amazing book called Shattered. Now Shattered is a behind-the-scenes look at the Hillary campaign 2016. It is fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. I love these books. I've reviewed, well not reviewed, but I've gone through, it was Obama and Romney's book, Obama and McCain's book. In addition to just political books in general, I enjoy it. This book is amazing. I haven't even finished it. And it's one of those things of, yeah. Now some of this is assuaging to my ego because I've made certain points, which is the point of this particular article. this particular segment actually. I've made the point over and over again that the Russia narrative that Hillary Clinton has been putting out, that Democrats have been putting out in unison, screaming about Russia, has everything to do with not wanting to have an honest conversation about why you lost that election. And because understand, if you had that conversation why you lost the election, you don't have a choice but to go to the primaries also. You don't have a choice. It is far easier to just scream Russia at the top of your lungs than to actually deal with the issues. Now part of this, or part of my reasoning for coming to this conclusion is, I've always made the point that whether it was Russia or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're in this ridiculous situation of saying, this group cheated me. But what you're saying they cheated you by doing is releasing information showing you cheating somebody else. Like, this is a ridiculous situation, however you want to look at it. Beyond that, there's this contradiction built into the story, though. The FBI is the investigative body of our government. The Democratic Party is insisting that Russia hacked them. Now, they didn't give their servers over to the FBI. You would think that, just logically, well, yeah, we're going to give it over to the investigative unit because we want to understand what took place. No, they ordered CrowdStrike, essentially another agency to which they paid to investigate that particular situation. Now, CrowdStrike's story has been met with some major skepticism, particularly since they've been having to go back over the information that they've been putting out with regards to this Russian hacking story. It's been found to be baloney. Multiple Democrats have also started to backpedal on this Russia story. I did this article by The Intercept, where these guys are saying there's no fire, there's no smoke, there's no little flame, there's nothing. There's nothing. The point I made was, even if Russia did hack us, that's not why she lost that election. And there are 10 items that I can think of before Russia ever comes on that list of the things that we need to address to stabilize our elections. You deal with that 10, the Russia part doesn't matter. Ultimately, this Russia story had everything to do with not wanting to have an honest conversation about why they lost. That's what it boils down to. That's the argument that I've made, that I've consistently made. Now, from a Democrat standpoint, you can understand why a candidate, meaning the Democratic Party itself, will make that case. The interesting question, I would even say the more interesting question, is why would the typical voter Democrat, why would that person go along with the story? Because understand, Rachel Maddow, as batshit crazy as her stories have been over the past few months, she's been getting a huge amount of ratings for those stories. Those stories are mental. She's been bringing home conspiracy theories left and right. Now, I think I've made this case before. Part of the reason they're believing this is somewhat self-serving. And I would even make the case it's completely self-serving, whether or not they realize it or not. There's a certain incentive structure for them to believe this particular story about Russia. This book is named Shattered for a reason. It's named Shattered for a reason. I didn't even vote for Hillary Clinton. And when she lost, I still had this feeling of, holy shit. Holy shit. I didn't even vote for her, I still had that feeling. So what does it look like when the typical Democrat, they look at HuffPost, and on the day Hillary Clinton lost that election to reality show host, they had Hillary Clinton winning at 98%, or a 98% chance of winning that election. That is comically ridiculous. That is comically ridiculous. Now, if that's your world, you were told from the day she started the campaign to the day she lost that campaign, it was a lock. She has a demographic advantage. Yes, she's been investigated, but no, they're not going to lock Hillary Clinton up. There's no way There's no way. There's a fundamental bias in reality that prevents a reality show host from taking the presidency. There's no way somebody can say that much bad stuff, can be that belligerent, can be that angry and over the top, and still win the presidency. There's no way. There's no way. There's a fundamental law of reality that prevents it. Newsflash, there is no fundamental law of reality that prevents that. None at all. Donald Trump is your president now. Donald Trump is your president. Now, you need to confront that. How do you confront that? Your party has just told you that, hey, you don't need to challenge the issues associated with your party. Your reality wasn't wrong. It wasn't it. There was a foreign body. There was a foreign agent. There was a red menace. There was something that was stalking in the background that reached into this country and changed what was Providence. She was inevitable. She was inevitable, goddammit. Russia changed it. She would have won that election if it wasn't for Russia. Now, certainly, this is somewhat self-serving. It allows them to essentially live in these illusions of our reality was perfectly okay if it wasn't for Russia doing something. Where's your evidence for that? Where's your actual evidence? You're insinuating that a foreign body hacked our elections. Now, everybody is continuously, at least progressives, are continuously making this point of, you're just saying this because you don't want to have an honest conversation about why you lost. Shattered, behind the scenes, says the exact same thing. This is an amazing thing to read. This is Shattered. So, this is immediately after the election. Hillary Clinton just lost. It hurts. It's painful. It's embarrassing. She didn't even go out that particular night to give the speech. Or the concession speech. On a phone call with a longtime friend a couple of days after the election, Hillary was much less accepting of her defeat. She put a fine point on the factors she believed cost her the presidency. The FBI, Comey, the KGB, and the KKK support Trump, who he got from white nationalists. I'm angry, Hillary told her friend, and exhausted. After 2 brutal campaigns against Sanders and Trump, Hillary now had to explain the failure to friends in a seemingly endless round of phone calls that was taking a toll on her already weary and grief-stricken soul. But mostly, she was mad. She was mad that she lost, and that the country would have to endure a Trump presidency. Yeah, keep that real. She was mad she lost. She was mad she lost. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. In the other calls, because look, the whole Pied Piper candidate thing was this idea that she put Trump up, or at the very least they played up Trump in the media in this sense, because they thought that was a person they wanted to run against. Now, that had nothing to do with country. That was purely party over country. That was political gamesmanship over country. I would imagine. And look, I can't prove it. But just based on the way this election went out, all of these things have boiled down to, it's her turn. It had nothing to do with anybody else other than, it's her turn. I don't know why it would change all of a sudden now that she lost. In other calls with advisors and political surrogates in the days after the election, Hillary declined to take responsibility for her own loss. She's not being particularly self-reflective, said one longtime ally who was on calls with her shortly after the election. Instead, Hillary kept pointing the finger at Comey and Russia. She wants to make sure all these narratives get spun the right way, this person said. That strategy had been set in motion within 24 hours of her concession speech. Mook and Podesta assembled her communications team at Brooklyn headquarters to engineer the case that the election wasn't entirely on the up and up. For a couple of hours, with Shake Shack containers littering the room, they went over the script they would pitch to the press and to the public. Already, Russia hacking was the centerpiece of that argument. That's amazing. In Brooklyn, her team coalesced around the idea that Russia hacking was a major unreported story of the campaign, overshadowed by the contents of stolen emails in Hillary's own private server in Broglio. They also decided to hammer the media for focusing so intently on the investigation into her emails, which had created a cloud over her candidacy. The press botched the email story for 18 months, said one person who was in the room. Comey obviously screwed us, but the press created the story. Now, understanding what's taking place here, they're creating a narrative. This narrative is being spun because she doesn't want to deal with the reality of what took place. And, again, I make this point that it's a self-serving narrative. She can feed to the other Democrats who can essentially attune themselves in this particular way. If you've noticed, the media, for the most part, told this line. They told this Russia line. Short on evidence, but they told this very particular line. But if you notice, the media told particular lines that the Clinton campaign put out anyway. This whole idea of Bernie Sanders being the white candidate, they told that particular line. This Russia ridiculousness, again, they told that particular line. Now, all of this, it's just political gamesmanship. It's political gamesmanship. Now here's the catch. If I'm right, which based on this I am, that all of this was purely just to avoid having a conversation about the problems with the party. Does this give any more context to the situation to which we find ourselves now, where we have Sanders jumping across the country? Because understand what I'm meaning here. If a party doesn't want to have an honest reflection on why it lost, it doesn't want to have those conversations, it doesn't want to bring it up, it doesn't want to reflect on what took place that allowed it to lose to this degree, can you pivot to another issue without necessarily addressing the actual issue that caused you to lose, and still address the issue that caused you to lose? What I'm getting at is this immediate pivot to something else, this immediate looking at something else, this pointing fingers, is done purely to prevent any level of introspection of why they lost and what's wrong with the Democratic Party. Why did a populace choose a blue-collar billionaire over a Democrat who's supposed to be the champion of the working man? How did that happen? How did that happen? My biggest issue with Sanders interacting with the Democratic Party in this way is that it is implicit in the behavior of the party not wanting to admit rigging the primaries, not wanting to have an honest conversation about why they lost, immediately going to this Russia narrative. All of these things are obfuscate reality. That's the point of it. But if they're trying to obfuscate reality, at what point do you actually address the things that caused those 15 million people to leave in the first place? Because understand, those 15 million people who left the party did so for damn good reasons. They did so for good reasons. Now, if you're trying to pull people back into a party where the party has no level of introspection whatsoever, has no interest in changing anything, has no interest in even honestly addressing the issues themselves that cause those people to leave, that cause them to lose, and that cause this level of, I guess, the scorn in which they're regarded. Those things are off the table. They instead want to talk about Russia. If they can't have those honest conversations, how can you transform a party that doesn't want to have the conversation about what's wrong with the party? What is the party that you're bringing people back into? What is that party? Hillary Clinton, the Democratic Party, created this narrative of Russia purely for political reasons. Those political reasons purely amounted to, we don't want to talk about why we lost. This is immensely embarrassing that we lost to reality show hosts. We need to talk about anything else. Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia did it. If you want to talk about the primaries, if you want to talk about she was a horrible candidate, if you want to say, we told you so that she was going to lose, if you want to say that the public did not believe it was her turn, if you want to say any of this stuff, then you're a Russian agent and you're working with Trump. And you're working with Putin, conversely, because Putin is all of a sudden working with Trump. This is the madness and the ridiculousness that we found ourselves with in the 3 months. Everything has been boiled down, at least democratic strategy has been predicated on, we don't want to talk about us. We want to talk about everything else. Whether it's resistance, whether it's Russia, all of those things have the exact same point. We don't want to talk about us. Everything is somebody else's fault. We need to talk about the external. But all that means is that nothing is taking place with, quote unquote, us. This doesn't get changed. This doesn't get attention. This doesn't get addressed. If you're pulling people back into this, you're pulling your people back into something that in no way has learned the lessons of why they lost that election. They still think it's this issue of branding and messaging. It's not branding and messaging. Your party is a dumpster fire. So, alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to write. And look, this book, I haven't finished it, but so far this book is damn good. I really enjoy it. It's called Shattered. Yeah, if you enjoy the content, feel free to write, subscribe, like the videos. You can always support the work through Patreon. Thanks guys.